Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Shop Talk, hosted by the Triangle Area SQL Server Users Group. So tonight we have very close to a full house, which I think means that we've got at least three of a kind. With me, Mala. How you doing, Mala?
Good evening, everyone.
And the one and only Mike. Now that he
Hello.
has destroyed and defeated all other Mikes.
Exactly.
Next up is the Michaels. So if you are a Michael, you might want to watch out. So Shop Talk, in case you're new, in case you're lost, in case you tuned in having no idea what was going on, if you do smell toast, you might be having a stroke. So do call 911 if that's the case. But unless you're making toast, I guess in that case, don't call 911 unless you're willing to offer toast to them. But Shop Talk, the idea here is every couple weeks we get together. It's after work. Some of us worked today. I won't tell you whether I was in that group or not. But if you're on the West Coast, you're probably still working. In that case, you've made a great choice by listening to us rather than doing actual work. So I applaud your effort. The idea of Shop Talk is that it's kind of a chat-driven environment. So welcome in folks in chat. You may have questions, we may have answers. We do that kind of exchange. It's sort of like exchanging goods and services, except that there's no money involved. So it is more of a coincidental pairing of needs. So we may coincidentally happen to have an answer to a question that you have. Howdy, Solomon. Now, in case nobody has questions, because why would Solomon have questions? Solomon has answers. But in case nobody does have questions, sorry, howdy. I mean, you can say hello. It's a perfectly acceptable form of greeting for humans and humanoids alike. So you're good. Speaking of good, we have an article. That was probably my worst transition that I've done yet. I greetings and salutations. That's a much better greeting, all things considered. So well done, Anders. You have once again passed a Turing test because no robot would be like you. Got you off track immediately. I mean, in fairness, I started off the rails. I was trying to bring myself onto the rails and it just wasn't working. So, but you know what? I'll give you credit. We should have a marker board of how many times somebody has driven me off the rails, because it does seem the bar on that test has been lowered. You're not joking. You are not joking. Eliza, people fought with Eliza, and Eliza won. So our first article actually kind of relates to this just a little bit. This is from the Wall Street Journal, and by the way, this actually does come from Marshall, who I'm gonna get rid of the ref link here, and because if it's not from Curated SQL, I don't give ref links. I should actually start doing reference link equals curatedSQL.com just so that it shows up in people's stats more often. But that's neither here nor there. So this does come from Marshall. I wanted to give credit. Wall Street Journal, tech jobs have dried up and aren't coming back soon, which you might think at first, oh, this is an article from 2008 or 2000 or one of the 4 or 5 other times when tech jobs dried up and aren't coming back soon. And the article, kind of interesting. First of all, the person here, Glenn Kugelman, posted up a bunch of flyers on a board, recently laid off, looking for a new job. And Glenn here is a technical person, by which he means online marketing, which doesn't particularly sound very highly technical to me, but that's an okay start. Yeah, 87, 91, 2001, 2008. I believe that there was another drop in about 2012, 2013, somewhere in that range. And you might find 1 or 2 cents then, 20-ish. But we are seeing postings for software development jobs down more than 30% since February of 2020, according to Indeed, as well as some significant industry layoffs. We've talked about them before on Shop Talk, heard of tens of thousands of people getting laid off at certain large companies. We're seeing job freezes where they're not hiring new people. And this 137,000 shedded jobs, according to layoffs.fyi, which that's a site I've not heard of before. I'm going to sneak it, tab open there just to see what it looks like, and just to get a feeling for what it looks like. Actually, it's not too bad. Layoffs.fyi. Let me show you that. As much as I hate the term FYI, we can see here that you have numbers. It looks like a chart. Oh my gosh, it looks like Excel online. This might be an Excel spreadsheet. Intel, 15,000 people laid off. Tesla, 14,000. Google, 12,000. Meta, 11,000. Amazon, 10. Microsoft, 10. Meta, again, 10. So, granted, some of these were 2 years ago, which means it doesn't include the hiring side as well. It's just the firing side or the layoff side. So, all that said, back to the article. You can check out layoffs.fyi if you'd like. And what we see is, in addition, company strategies. So in this article, they're talking about pulling back on entry-level hiring, cutting the recruiting teams, and getting rid of jobs in areas that are not huge moneymakers, including VR and devices. And frankly, the metaverse. The metaverse is the technology of 2023. I don't know how they could be cutting off the metaverse.
I actually have those. I have a, what is it called? I have a VR thing, and it makes my wife ill, and I can't play it for that. I can't use it for that long. They're not. I don't know. There's probably some that are more comfortable than mine, but it's not very fun.
Actually, I do have a MetaQuest 3. It's sitting back here behind the green screen. I use it occasionally, but I get the same thing where I just get dizzy after a while. It doesn't work very well for me. I could not imagine having meetings or trying to do a full day's work in it. Just having that bright light just shining directly into your eyes, having the lack of depth. You can fake it to a certain extent, but after a while you realize, no, that depth isn't there. And so you have focus in a way that your eyes just don't naturally have.
Right.
And it's kind of cool as a parlor trick, as a thing to play around with. But then after a while, I could not imagine doing that for 8 hours. I also can't imagine not having legs.
Yeah. Mine gets pretty hot. Mine's the Steam one. I forget the name of it.
Got it. Yeah, and they do get warm. They are a little heavy. They're fun toys. I don't see a lot of practical productivity capabilities with them. But and I also don't see that changing anytime soon, because part of the reason that they're heavy is they need to have that for the battery. So otherwise you're completely tethered in. You're not moving anywhere, which defeats the purpose.
Mine's tethered,
yeah. The augmented reality style. The Quest 3 does a pretty good job of having cameras, forward-facing cameras, where you can see the world around you, especially if you get near an obstacle, so you don't run into a wall or anything. But it's still kind of a toy. It's not a great technology for productivity. There are some good games. You can watch videos. Videos are fun to watch on it. But I can't see it as a tool that you would use for regular development work or regular office work in general. But we do need those to succeed to get good hollow desks. So actually the thing that I thought was going to be more reasonable was augmented reality. And AR hasn't picked up at all either. I remember Microsoft had their HoloLens, and the HoloLens 2, and those were kind of neat, but I guess the battery life was bad on them. And again, in that case, you did not have necessarily the problem of uh, lack of depth perception and everything in focus, but it did have the problem of you're wearing a fairly heavy device on your head, which is not that comfortable, and there's limited practical value for it. Today, I was trying to find this business hidden behind other buildings. AR would have been awesome to point it out. Yes, and there is some limited capability on phones. For example, Android phones will have AR walking directions. So you can hold your phone up and get your directions of walk this way as you walk into people because you're not paying attention because you're staring at the arrow instead of looking at things around you. Also, it makes you look weird as it looks like you're filming everybody around you because technically you're filming everybody around you. So you get to be that guy. But it has been very useful in circumstances where, okay, I need to get to this hotel. I actually have no idea where it is. And now I need to walk to it. Where do I go? So that's been useful of it. And finding buildings behind other buildings, it's been generally useful at that if the other building is actually on a street corner or on a street where Google would have it mapped.
You could think you could have like a big arrow just in the sky, like pointing down, like over here.
You could have that, but now granted I haven't used this in a little while, the walking directions on Google Maps with AR, but they'll actually have a 3D arrow kind of pointing in the direction, oh, it's over this way. So then you can turn over instead of having it come down pointing like, that's the building back here. But yeah, it's a neat idea. Labeling buildings, I think, is a useful concept with AR, but there's limited capability to monetize that, I think. And so that's part of why I believe it hasn't taken off. Also, it drains battery life like crazy. So you have that immediate trade-off, which again is why these devices are so big and bulky and have large batteries. I don't see battery capabilities improving significantly anytime in the near future. I see marginal improvements, but you're not going to see 10x capabilities in battery power.
The hardware gets better and better, but they need tons of sensors and stuff.
Yes. Yeah, it's a challenge. Nuclear batteries are right around the corner.
Yeah.
2025, year of the fusion reactor.
Fusion would be much better. I got radioactive dye the other day, and it was very serious. They came in, and it was like in this canister that had skull and crossbones on it.
Sure.
Ooh.
Yep.
Don't spill it.
It's a radioactive dye. What do you want from it? Now go put on your lead plate and get ill that other way.
Exactly.
Speaking of getting ill, companies are putting enormous resources into AI. I think that was a slightly better transition. I think I did a little bit better of a job there. I'm gonna work on it. By the time we get through the night, I'll be back to my smooth transitioning. It's been a minute. It's been a couple weeks. So, I do believe that there is a generative AI bubble, and that is affecting some roles. Because, well, why would I hire real interns when I could hire drunken interns and have them do intern work that I then have to review everything? I do believe that's something that we are seeing right now, that companies are looking to, well, if I can replace 10% of my staff, well, the 10% I'm going to have to replace are my junior staff because the senior people actually know what they're doing. The junior people, hey, I could automate that. But I also don't see it working incredibly well. This person, I kind of know of the boom bust cycle, says Chris Voltz, an engineering manager living in Oakland. who has been working in tech since the late 90s and was laid off in August 2023 from a real estate technology company. This time it felt very, very different. This time it's personal. And he had to blast a resume out for the first time in his career. What? I've done that before. Now, blasting out resumes doesn't actually work. His layoff might be my fault, Anders says. I believe it. I know what you do for a living, Anders, but even if you didn't do that for a living, I'd still believe it. So blasting the resume, that almost never works. Because when you're doing that, you're trying to reach out to a bunch of different positions where you have little to no knowledge of the position. You obviously don't know people there because you're just bam, 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 bam. And you're probably not customizing your resume. You're not tailoring it to the company. You're not doing the fancy cover letter. You're not talking to contacts. You're just hoping, pray and spray, and spray and pray. A little bit of both, doing kind of one after the other and then the other after one. That almost never works. Which, yeah, I applied for 120 positions. I got 3 callbacks. So for the record,
that's normal.
That is actually pretty normal. It is close.
For specialized tech jobs, I would think that's pretty normal.
Well, for jobs in general, my understanding is you have about a 10% hit rate for, I send out a resume to 10 positions. I expect 1 to call me back. And then of those 10, you might get 2 to 3 who will eventually give you a job offer. And so that, I mean, him getting 3 out of 120, granted, he's in Oakland. And so there are a lot of people who are getting laid off in that area right now, which affects things a bit more. But yeah, like you said, Mike, this isn't that weird. If you told me it was anywhere from 5 to 15, I would say, oh, it's perfectly normal. Welcome to spray and pray. That's why you don't do it. That's why you do research. You work with contacts and you tailor yourself for that position, and then you get a higher than 10% hit rate. It may not be 100%. It may be 50%, 40%. But, also it goes back to classic advice that we tend to give when people ask for it, and sometimes when they don't. Know people at the companies. Ask around. Try to get referrals. Be more focused in your research, and that will help draw interest, because there's a lot more interest if Mala reaches out and says, hey, I've got this job here at the company that is fantastic and you would be great at it, let me refer you, versus if I don't know anybody at the company, I just start dropping resumes in.
Yeah, I agree. And this guy was out of work for 6 or 7 months. I mean, that's not terrible.
That is true.
Right. 6 or 7 months is the average, even if you happen to be an experienced, well-connected person. If you want to find something that you want, the job versus a job, that's how I like to say it. If you just want to grab anything that comes your way, then maybe you might get to something sooner. But if you want something that is more aligned with your skills, and if you like the culture of the company and all that such, 6 months is the minimum average time for anybody.
Yeah,
Most people. Yeah,
6 is pretty normal.
Yeah.
And especially when you're laid off, usually you have severance. Usually you have some amount of time where you expect to take it off. Anders does mention recruiter emails have definitely dropped off the last few months. That is true. I've had many fewer recruiters reach out and randomly try to hit me up. But I have had some. I've had a fair number, and I tend to laugh at it because you're back to, wait, this is 5 states away for 20% less than I'm making today. This doesn't sound like a winner. So, and the fact that he had a 5% pay cut,
that's almost like non-material. I mean, it's not nothing, but it's I took a huge pay cut. I'm happier, but I don't know. Everything's relative. I wouldn't say 5% pay cut is.
Yeah. In a in a world with negligible inflation, 5% pay cut is it's not too bad. This is a little bit more than, relatively speaking, let's say if it was 5 years ago. It's more because your nominal income has dropped 5%, which means your real income has dropped more like 9 to 10%. But 9 to 10% pay cut, it sucks. Though there are people who take that kind of a pay cut to stay at a company, and that's rare in the tech world, to the point where, especially in the last couple of years, remember 2 years ago, people were flipping their jobs post COVID, which actually may be what this section is talking about. People flipping their jobs post COVID to get 30, 40, 50% pay increases in 2022, and saying, "Oh, well, this is perfect," and then realizing that, well, those times don't last forever.
Yep.
Tech companies went on hiring sprees, took on far too many workers. I think the problem here was less too many workers and more not good workers. It kind of, every time I think about one of the major companies, I think about the videos that people who are not the brightest put out about, this is my day at giant company. And you ask, wait, where, when do you actually do work? Because you're showing, oh, you're hanging out in the coffee room. Oh, you're in the games section. Oh, you're spending all your time on X. Oh, you're making a video while you're at work. When do you actually do anything? You went to a meeting. Okay, there, you did something, right? Like, you're supposed to be a software developer. How much software did you develop today? And so I believe that there's, at all of these companies, a pretty large number of people, large percentage of people who aren't actually good workers and are starting to get found out about it. There are some good people who get mixed up in the wash there. And obviously this isn't the case for everybody in every situation, but when Google lays off 10,000 people, you'd have to imagine they're not laying off their 10,000 top employees. They're not laying off the people who drive whatever it is that Google does these days, which I believe is being evil. Perhaps the author is an unreliable narrator. He was previously overpaid 10 to 20%. You're not wrong. Again, going back to 2022, the boom time, where, you switched over to a new job and got a 40% pay increase, and then found out 2 years later, well, that was a bad idea for the company. Companies did spray and pray hiring, which they did, and the top 10% tends to be the one leaving first after layoffs. Sometimes, yes. I would argue it depends on the company, and it depends on the nature of the layoffs. Because, I do follow the smart rats leave first philosophy of watching the layoffs happen and saying, well, I'm out of here. But at the same time, if it looks like, the groups that you're getting rid of were not actually producing anything, and I'm actually producing something, I don't know that applies so much. It could be more of a morale improvement because, well, hey, I noticed all these people doing literally nothing for months and they're gone. Okay, well, great. Now it actually shows, you have to do work sometimes. Which really puts a hit on the ping pong schedule.
Yeah, the air hockey.
Right, the air hockey. Yeah. I mean, that's like the first half of the day. The air hockey tournament. Especially when there are multiple waves within months. Now, when there are multiple waves, that's a different story. That's saying, you're taking a beating. And if your company has so many bad employees that you have multiple waves of layoffs, then I don't know. That's a senior management problem.
Well, like I think about IBM and Watson, that program didn't do very well, and they had a lot of shedding. And then I'm thinking about Intel right now, right? So Intel's a great company, but they're getting hammered, right? So like if you're a top software engineer for them, like would you think about switching or
I mean,
I
yes,
don't
but I'm an AMD fanboy.
know.
So Intel I think is a specific problem that has come from the fact that they have really screwed the pooch on CPUs the last couple of generations. They
Yeah.
have done a terrible job with 2 generations worth of processors that have markedly outsized numbers of flaws, and flaws that affect customers at a high enough rate that it's a disaster. It is a proper disaster, and Intel is taking an enormous beating over it, to the point where there actually is a chance Intel could go under. They wouldn't just disappear.
Wow.
I know there have been rumors about Qualcomm trying to buy them.
Yeah, and private equity coming in to give them some loans.
Yeah, Qualcomm, not Broadcom. But it doesn't look very good for Intel right now. And again, Intel I think is a specific scenario where that was a massive mess up. Are you talking about Intel or Boeing? Boeing is awful as well. Boeing is again senior management.
Boeing might hunt you down and kill you, for God's sakes.
I'm not whistleblowing. Hey, I never heard anything bad about Boeing. Please don't kill
All
me.
right. I mean, I shouldn't say that so
Allegedly.
starkly, but yeah, I mean, that stuff is sinister.
Allegedly, I never heard. Yeah, we never made any accusations here on Shop Talk. So now for our first sponsor segment, Boeing. Okay. Downturn quickly followed. Higher inflation and interest rates cooled the economy. Okay. ADP started tracking employment for software developers in 2018, observing a steady climb until October of 2019, which that just reminds me of Disco Stew, and Disco sales have been up year over year for the past 4 years, 1972 to 1976. If these trends continue, hey. Yeah, this is a little while ago, but the Software Engineer Employment Index, this is from ADP, so it's just ADP employees and people who are coded as software engineers. But you can see that 2021, you do see this drop off, and it kind of came back up. But yeah, you're seeing fewer employed software engineers. Looking at 85% of people compared to 2018. And job seekers no longer feel wined and dined. Have any of you ever been wined or dined?
I know. I thought that line was hilarious. Wined and dined. Indeed.
Well, I mean, like we get my old job. We got free food and smoothie day, and
well, I mean, in an interview.
I mean, we got spoiled in some ways.
During an interview, not first day. First day on the job, that's different, and literally getting wined, well, mimosa'd. But during the interview process itself.
Oh yeah.
No,
even when I've interviewed at Silicon Valley a couple of times, and the farthest they would go is maybe, somebody on the interviewing team would take you out for lunch somewhere.
Right.
I mean, not wined and dined, honestly.
Well, you at least were dined.
Yeah, maybe dined, yeah.
Yeah, you got like $15 right there.
Right.
So yeah, that line is a little funny. Former product manager laid off from Meta, driving this spring to an interview about an hour away when he received an email from the company telling him he would be expected to complete a 3-part writing test upon his arrival. No one was there except for a person at the front desk. Wow. I'm sorry. I shouldn't be quite as mean about this. And actually, yeah, interviewers showing up 3 hours later and just telling them to finish the test and not interviewing, that is a little silly, especially for a person who drove an hour. But then again, you're in San Francisco. You drove an hour. That could be anything from like a quarter mile to 20 miles. So that's not impressive. Go live in the Midwest where everything's 20 to 30 minutes away. Then you got no problem. And interviewers showing up 3 hours later, that's kind of dumb. I'm not going to excuse the interviewers there, but if this is your horror story, your sad tale of woe and misery, I got nothing for you. I've had worse interviews.
Yeah, I mean, stuff like that happens sometimes. It's not often.
Yeah.
But it's also good information because then you're like, well, I don't think I want to work here if they're not very organized.
I mean, that's true. If I went to this place and they had me spending 3 hours doing a written test and then, oh, well, we're not even going to interview you, I probably don't want to work here. So, okay. I learned a lesson. Time to leave. The trend of ballooning salaries and advanced titles that don't match experience has reversed. I would hope so. We're seeing the levels getting reset. People are more appropriately matching their experience and scope. Again, I don't see this as a bad thing. Wage growth has been stagnant in 2024, which, again, that does suck considering that inflation is still around. I interview you first, then we talk about a test. That, I believe, is perfectly reasonable. I could see a test as a way of separating. If you have hundreds of candidates and you need a way of filtering out some of the worst ones first, the test can be useful. However, in most circumstances, I think that the tests that people create have their own problems. They either are trying to measure the wrong thing, or they are easily reviewable online, or you get the classic of the recruiter will send one person out as sort of okay, your job is to take the test, and then you'll talk to the recruiter and you'll talk to them about all the questions on the test because the recruiter will just be asking stuff, and then they'll tell the other candidates, the ones who they actually think could get the job, what the questions are. Well, you better study about A, B, C, and D. So that strategy has been around for a while. Their coding tests are just free labor sometimes, and that I find galling. If you're doing real work in an interview, you should get paid for that. I have a firm line on that. I'm okay. I liked the way that I had set up interviews, and I'd worked in interviews before where, here's a screenshot. Here's a bit of code. Tell me about what you see. You're not doing any work for me. You're not doing anything. You're not writing any special code here. I just want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear how you process things. I want to understand what you see, what you know, and that gives me an idea of your skill level, and we can ask more questions and drill in further. But if you're having to solve problems, then you should be getting paid for that. And I know that there are companies that will do this. They will say, okay, well, we've got like 3 hours of work and we're going to put you with somebody else and we're going to essentially pair program for 3 hours and you will get paid for this because you are a contractor for those 3 hours. They may or may not take that work. It may be the same work each time, but if you're getting paid for it, that's okay. If you're not getting paid for it, no. All right, so Mala in chat, because I'm dominating the conversation, sort of like the Dikembe Mutombo of Shop Talk. How do they create a test if they have a list of skills that span platforms? Not like the olden times where you're purely SQL Server or purely anything. That's a problem. Yeah, that can be a challenge. And you have the risk of either you're asking a lot of questions on a wide variety of topics and hoping that you get the one person who happens to be a specialist in 4 different areas, or you're trying to narrow in on here's the most important parts of the job, or you're realizing, I really need 3 people for this. And when SQL Skills had tests for SQL Server developers or DBAs catered to purely SQL Server jobs. Now you don't have so many of those jobs around. Arguably, yeah. I've done that before. Put $1 in front of a candidate and tell me weaknesses on the server. That's your own dollar.
What does he mean by S1?
That's $1 US dollar. Oh no, sorry,
and
Century One.
most jobs have multiple platforms, and even for my job now, when I interviewed, my interview was when Kevin did my interview, all T-SQL questions. No worries, because that was what I was expected to do. I don't do just T-SQL now. At least 50% of my day I spend on Redshift and on Postgres and MySQL and this and that, and
You have my
that same
condolences.
interview may not be valid right now because that's not how we work anymore.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
Same
And
time, like if there was a JavaScript job, like I wouldn't apply for it because I wouldn't feel like I
sure.
can do a little bit of JavaScript, but if I did it all day, I would probably be so stressed out.
So I didn't
No.
see until later that that was Century One and not $1. But I do like the idea of Andrew just pulling $1 out of his pocket and saying, tell me the problems on this server. You get that $1. So, if you ever need a new interviewing strategy, I got you covered there, Anders. $1 at a time. At the time we interviewed, we only did T-SQL. Yeah. I mean, that's fair. And for jobs where you do have that wider variety, well, this is not something that is unique to databases or to the technical world. This is something that you can pull into any field where you have a person who specialized in one thing, but then also did these 5 other things. And now that person is left and we need to hire a new person. And you're finding out, oh, it isn't easy to find someone who is good at billing and claims negotiation and credentialing doctors and medical coding and transcription work and like all of these different things that one person might be doing all at the same time because, well, this person's been around for 15, 20 years and has just gotten progressively more work dumped on them. So then you discover, we probably need 2 or 3 people.
Yeah, we have that issue. Like I was just thinking about this. Like you're about to get to the thing where you're going to say that this guy's a software engineer. It's going to be kind of funny, but like I can do Tableau and I can do Power BI. I can do Business Objects. I'm not really awesome at them. I wouldn't necessarily apply for a job doing it full time because I'm like not that skilled. But a lot of us, we were talking about this not long ago. A lot of us, you two and others in the group have like a ton of skills that are kind of across different types of technology. That isn't necessarily straight up developer or straight up ETL or and you pick stuff up as you go and you can't necessarily.
The best way is to describe, have questions specifically related to the job environment and see how the person responds to answering them. Like, how would you find a solution to a problem like this or like that? And, see how they respond to that sort of a thing. That's the best way to test them. No other way.
Yeah. So if somebody came from an Oracle shop and they were really good and they could think well, like we are hiring and we mostly do SQL Server now, I wouldn't put them off the table because like they'll figure out what they need to figure out to do it.
Yeah. Or hopefully you'll find out soon enough. Now, this paragraph, to do more with less, they need team members who possess soft skills, collaboration abilities, and a working knowledge of where the company needs to go with its AI strategy, says person with Robert Half. And if Boeing's not going to assassinate me, Robert Half is going to assassinate me after I lay as much complaint on them as I would like to.
I don't even want to get started on that.
No, we have to wrap up at the top of the hour, so we can't spend the appropriate amount of time excoriating that firm. Now for our second sponsor segment, which is also Boeing, oddly enough. I also think that AI strategy is in the midst of a massive bubble that is going to burst, but that would also
the cloud
indicate.
Bubble didn't burst, Kevin.
What's that?
The cloud bubble didn't burst. I was just kidding.
Well, I mean, it's not as strong as blockchain.
Yeah, I don't use it that much day to day, but It is useful for some things. I know that's a whole sidebar, but Epic, the big tool that we use for EHR that has 90% market share for hospitals,
Yeah.
they have AI embedded in it now, where you can there's a tool that's like Power BI inside of the whole application suite, and they have this thing called Sidekick, and you can just write like a natural sentence and say, how many people have diabetes in the last year, stuff like that, and it tries to figure out what you're trying to do. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
It didn't work. Half the time. So they're still working on it. It's still a pilot.
Sorry, those two sentences right there just describe generative AI to a T. It's very interesting. It didn't work, but it was very interesting.
It worked in like a few of the cases where they said, and then as soon as it gets more complicated, then they had diabetes and that they were readmitted to the hospital for this specific procedure, then it doesn't know what to do.
Right. And then you have the next person, software engineer in Atlanta, who decided to enroll in an online college after a 7-month job hunt went nowhere. Learned to code by taking online classes. Says not having a college degree didn't stop him from finding work in 2018 during the middle of a boom.
This is somebody I would call a coder. I wouldn't necessarily say, like, that's kind of like me. Like, I've learned on the job, and I've gone to some mini boot camps, not a full boot camp, but and I learned a lot online. But like, when I work with software engineers, they have this wealth of knowledge of like different languages, architecture, algorithms. I'm not saying, I'm not putting this person down. I'm just saying that, like, when a tech journalist write this stuff, they're just vague.
No, I'm looking at this line. He says he's hoping to show potential employers that he's working towards a degree. I have not had too many potential employers who are that keen on that. I mean, they might appreciate the fact that I'm doing a degree along with the job and other, as an older person. But more than that, I don't know. It has to be a very special degree to have an employer be terribly interested in it. There are definitely such degrees, but in most cases they're appreciative. That's it. It's not going to get you the job or anything.
Right.
Yeah.
And actually might harm job prospects in some respects because, this guy's he's taking college courses. How dedicated will he be to our work during the day if he's got homework and, probably other things going on in life? So it may be a positive. It may just as well be a negative. And 2 to 3 interviews for every 100 jobs he applies for. Again, that's a little low. Now, if it's 2 to 3 like in-person interviews where you get to that second step versus phone screens or initial calls.
And it says nothing about what other skills he had. So like Mike said, if he was just a coder, then I mean, yeah.
Now, tech internships, once paid salaries that would be equivalent to 6 figures a year.
Which tech intern got 6 figures a year? I'd love to know.
Yeah.
I'd love to know.
Like every intern I've ever worked with, it's more along the lines of 50, 60K a year, except that they're working part-time. It's 20 hours a week. It's half a year. So, this is tailored toward, here's the Silicon Valley intern who's living in an apartment with 9 other interns because they can't afford anything else. Sure.
I can say if you were like the top of your class and you have a master's degree in electrical engineering and, and went to Carnegie Mellon, I mean, and you're a specialist or something. I mean, certainly there's superstars like that, but that's not normal.
No. And in that case, why are you an intern? Why don't you get a real job? Why don't you be a real human? By the way, my philosophy, interns aren't people. So, network. Yeah, that's an important thing. Like the Triangle Area SQL Server users group. where you can network with people on occasion. We have a meeting in person once a month, third Tuesday of the month. You could come in there. You could network. You could meet other people and possibly get a job. Probably not one that would be an equivalent to 6 figures a year as an intern, but better
6 figures
than nothing.
It's just all that matters is where you put the little dot. And if you put the dot
That's
a
true.
little bit further,
That is
that's
true.
6 figures. But
1,000.00. That's 6 figures right there.
well, yeah, conferences too. Yeah.
Okay. Myron Lucan, 31-year-old in Dallas. A few I know who made 6 figures right out of college all went to Boeing. Our third sponsored segment by Boeing. Go there. You can make 6 figures out of college and lose a wrench in an airplane. Please don't kill me, Boeing. That allegedly. Please don't allegedly kill me, Boeing. Mike is okay. Just like give us heads up first so we can replace him on the show. But and so those people who made 6 figures right out of college were probably also aviation engineers, electrical engineers, versus software developers. But even some of those, again, those are also full-time jobs. That's not an internship.
Yeah.
I would imagine. Went to a coding school to transition from Air Force to a job in the tech industry. All the entry-level job listings require a couple of years of experience. I've been complaining about this for 20 years.
Yeah, and if you're from the military, you have tons of experience. I mean, geez.
That's correct. Yeah. I mean, a lot of jobs, you might be getting blocked by the automated HR systems because the automated HR system says, oh, you need 2 years as a software engineer. And no, you just had like 8 years as an airman. But if you get to a person, they can realize, okay, well, you've done, he's 31, so he's probably done 2 tours. So dual aviation and computer science. That will make you some money. So entry-level jobs requiring several years of experience. I've been complaining about that for literally decades. We've been laughing about for decades we want entry-level who has senior-level experience and paid entry-level wages. And that's always been the case. I don't think this is anything special. AI is going to make people getting to senior level harder. I think that it will be a challenge. I think it will introduce new challenges because you will have a harder time thinking for yourself and being able to perform the level of critical analysis necessary to understand when the system comes back with a garbage answer, knowing that it is a garbage answer and adjusting for it. This is a challenge that people do have with generated content. I think this is a problem that we've had on a small scale for the internet era and will be at a larger scale for the generated content era, because you can go look, you might even use Copilot or GPT-4 or ChatGPT or Llama 3 or any such tool. You may just go to a website to try to find, how do I do this thing? And then the answer that you get is completely bogus because it was generated by some generative AI model that just put some words together. And congratulations, that's the blog post. So I think that there will be a challenge in that respect. And I will find it interesting how people adapt to it, especially people who don't have enough job skills in the area, either in the area itself or in general, where you have a BS detector.
I had a good example.
Go ahead.
I had an example of that. So we, a colleague and I were trying to figure out how to connect Oracle in a protected environment in, like, using Kerberos authentication inside of Ubuntu, and we used ChatGPT, and I was at this point where like I don't know enough about what is right or wrong for me to like even understand like when we keep getting these, we're getting blocked, or we couldn't make the connection, and we kind of found out that probably it's because we need a service account, not individual account. But it took like a couple of us to like understand what was even going on. So it could have been like if I didn't have help from the guy who's an administrator, a network administrator, I would have been completely lost.
Sure. And Solomon also mentions, or something generated by somebody who wasn't that good or knowledgeable or experienced. I've seen people copy paste human generated blog post stuff that was pure garbage. Absolutely. This is some of it is the Stack Overflow effect, where we now have a generation of Stack Overflow driven developers who don't know how to think, do research, or do anything other than Google topic, find first thing in Stack Overflow, copy paste, hope it works. And if it doesn't work, it must be broken. We can't do this.
Yeah, I think on Hacker News a couple of days ago, a big maintainer of an NLP project retired it because he's saying that like now they're just garbage creating garbage, and he's tired of it.
We have actually talked about that on Shop Talk before of how if generated content becomes the training data for a generative model, that the model collapses quickly, that within a couple generations of training, you have pure garbage getting output.
Yeah,
let me see if I can pull up that.
It wasn't only that. It wasn't only that. It was also because X won't support an API, and Reddit starting to charge prohibitive fees for scraping. It wasn't just that, but it was fascinating. I'll try to find it. Oh, the search is on the bottom.
Right. That, oh my gosh, we actually have to pay for data nowadays. We can't just take it from everybody.
Exactly. So there was some pros and cons in what the guy was saying.
Yeah. Yeah. All
right.
You
can't even an X, as he said, is like just garbage now. It's like anyway, I'm off topic.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that is complaining that, oh, well, I used to be able to get a free ride here and take all of this text and be able to plug it into my model that I didn't have to pay anything for, but now I actually have to pay something for it, so that's awful. Yeah, too bad. Welcome to life. Also, how many copyrighted books did you include? If we're talking about, well, basically any of the major players, how much copyrighted work did you include in your training model that you didn't actually hold copyrights to and didn't have the legal authority to use? But let's not talk about that. It's all X is bad, Reddit is bad.
It's called word frequency, word freak.
Okay. AI ethics, yeah, it is a big area. I have opinions that are not very strong and will vacillate a bit given the day, but it's a tough topic. It's not something we're going to really get into in any meaningful way, probably ever. So AI will become like Netflix, spread out to 10 different sites without sharing. Actually, I've noticed what's happening is that the major players are purchasing publishing houses for the rights to be able to use their books for model training. So we are seeing some of that.
Oh, interesting, Kevin. I had no idea.
Yeah. Or Stack Overflow or Stack Exchange answers that are marked as correct 5+ years ago that aren't correct anymore, I could say. But the correct answer posted 3 months ago has 2 upvotes because the question isn't a topic of new interest. Yeah, that is a very common problem as well. And for everybody who's doing Stack Overflow driven development, which I will do at times as well, one of the skills is, can you pick out the correct answer? And it's not always the one that has a check mark. All right.
No, sometimes it's in the comments too.
True.
I go in the comments and I'll be like, oh, somebody corrected this.
All right. So I've been trying to get this post in for the last 3 episodes.
Oh no, we did it again.
Nope. I'm doing it. We're getting it done, people.
I'm in.
Rate My Dashboard by Martin Scoomby. This is from a month ago. I've been trying to get this on Shop Talk this is the 3rd episode now. But we've got it. We're finally doing it. We've got 5 minutes to do this. So Martin is a great guy. And someone asked him to rate a Power BI dashboard, a scale from 0 to 10, taking into account aspects like data storytelling, design, and usability. And Martin's original answer is, I agreed on the condition that the feedback would be public and in the form of a blog post. All right, that's fair. So the problem, here we go. You're asking the wrong question. It's not rate my dashboard. Instead, question or possible answers. Say no, I won't do it. Be empathetic and provide a high score. Be hypercritical and provide a low score. Spend a large amount of time gathering the context and analyzing all the aspects of the report before providing feedback. Well, 4 is right out. So yeah, you get gold star. Go away now. And here I've been hearing that dashboards are dead. Dashboards, no, they're not dead. Dashboard designers aren't very good at it, but dashboards are very much alive. 4 is a standard response, but the reality is I just don't have enough time for it. Yeah. And the fictitious business problem with substandard data and context, it's difficult to be constructive. I think that's fair. And so here's scrolling through this because, I only have a few minutes to talk about it. I do think that this is a good article. Most of the Power BI challenges that I've seen incentivize you to focus on the visual aspects of reporting only. And so add in as many visual bells and whistles as you can because, hey, that's what your submission is going to be rated on. But that's not the type of world that we deal with. The world that we're trying to deal with is around, tell me the information that I need to be able to do my job. If we're talking about a dashboard, I need to be able to glance at this thing, understand what task I as a human need to perform as a result of seeing this dashboard. That task could be do nothing, everything's looking great. But if something's not great, it should tell me in such a way that I can interpret, understand, and rectify an issue that comes up. That is the ideal of a dashboard. How pretty it is doesn't have nearly as big of a focus. There are good visualization rules. All other things equal, prettier is better, but prettier doesn't replace more functional. This goes back to a quotation from Stephen Few that I love, that it's along the lines of, dashboards are not an artistic mechanism. So they are a business tool. And I fully agree with that idea, while also saying that, if you have the opportunity to create something that is aesthetically pleasing, but does not lose out on any ability to convey information quickly and efficiently, yeah, do that. Don't make it purposefully ugly. But a lot of dashboard design comes down to more than just how does it look. Because if we see this particular dashboard that Martin is showing, we have a set of visuals here, and the immediate question is, what are you doing? What information are we getting out of this? How are we acting upon this? And I think that's the challenge that we have with most dashboards, is that as I scroll through here, Martin does talk about some of the visualization components: alignment, spacing, consistency, white space, effective use of boundary. So he is looking at this from the standpoint of, well, let me talk about the visuals. But in the following information, we have a sentence that sales peaked in May and that the top product was software as a service. which we see down at the bottom here. But you can already see that in the visual. So why are you putting that in the text as well? There's some argument behind it, but then you have to lay out the why is this the story? Why is this interesting? I think what happened was this was a person who grabbed a component, a capability in Power BI, slapped it in because it's there, and that doesn't necessarily help. Yeah, what if I don't care about what the peak was and which was the top product accounting for what percentage of sales that month? What if I cared about, well, why did it drop the next 2 months? Is that a problem? We're seeing drop month over month over month, and August was awful. What's going on here? Why are we so bad?
Yeah, I like to show rolling 13.
Yeah. But just getting back to, okay, here's just some more information, but essentially understanding what is the relevant bit of information for your customer. And that is hard. That is a hard thing to do. Andrew says he should rate the performance dashboards that come with Azure. Speaking of trying to find out how hard dashboard design is, looking at the stuff in Azure, 80% of those visuals, I don't think are helpful at all. I think that was, well, what information can we quickly show to people versus what do people need to solve problems? One of my everlasting ongoing complaints is it is unnecessarily difficult to troubleshoot problems in Azure application services. You can go through logs, assuming that you have the logs. But if the problem is related to container building, you may lose the container logs. You may lose some of the relevant information. And so you might not be able to even know, oh, there was this problem here in the application that just you didn't get access to because, well, the app failed on build. And so the logs that you get aren't the build logs. The logs that you get are something else. Like the container was deleted, so we lost all the logs for it. And so now I'm trying to troubleshoot, and you're showing me, well, you got 500 errors. Yeah, congratulations. Why did I get the 500 error? Oh, well, we can't tell you that. What's the point? Why? And the visuals that they show, like, well, you had this many 500 errors. Okay. But can you help me understand why? No, we can't. So anyhow, that's going to do it for us tonight. I'm going to stop sharing. We're going to wrap things up. We hope you enjoyed it. Remember, tomorrow, I'm actually going to be presenting for the Data Science and Business Intelligence group at meetup.com/TriPass. I'm going to talk about building a data application with Streamlit. Kind of dashboardy. All Python. And it should be fun. So check that out tomorrow, meetup.com/TriPass. And until we do see each other in a future video, whether that be here on Shop Talk or at a TriPass meeting or even in person, meetup.com/TriPass, third Tuesday of the month. Until we do see each other again, everybody, take care.